Greetings and welcome to the Be the Ultimate Assistant podcast with Bonnie and Vicki. Hello, everybody. I'm Vicki Sokol-Evans.
And I am Bonnie Low-Kramen. And we are here at Executive Secretary Live in the Silicon Valley with a live audience. Oh, and they're real early birds.
Yes.
You really find out who the early birds are when we do something like this. And this conference is the brainstorm of Lucy Brazier, the visionary leader in the administrative profession. And we are so excited to be speakers at the event. And then we get the chance to do this podcast from the stage. So we have a really special guest today, don't we, Vic?
We have a very special guest. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce her, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
All right. Our very special guest today is Teri Wells, who has traveled to San Jose, California here all the way from Johannesburg, South Africa. Teri, hey!
That is one long trip,
Yes.
boy.
Teri has 29 years as an executive assistant and is here to talk with us about the role that is closest to her heart, which is giving back to the administrative profession. Together with fellow executive assistant and friend of ours, an international trainer, Anel Martin, Teri founded Isipho Admin Bursary in 2015, a charitable scholarship organization that selects, supports, mentors, and prepares young students, both female and male, in South Africa for a career in the administrative support profession. Bonnie and I met Teri in Johannesburg several years ago at the beginning when Isipho was just getting off the ground. And we've had the privilege of meeting the very first scholarship recipients, and it was unforgettable. And that's why we wanted our listeners and viewers to hear about this incredible initiative. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please help us welcome Teri Wells?
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Teri, tell us the story about Isipho and how it got started, how this genius idea, where it came from.
Anel and I were sitting having coffee because we are friends and we used to meet on a Saturday morning periodically, and we were sitting having coffee and discussing our then relatively long careers, and we realized that both of us wanted to give something back to the profession. And that, coupled with the unemployment, the lack of education, resources, etc. in South Africa, naturally led us down the path to establishing a bursary. But we wanted to make sure that it was for our profession. So the two of us had this idea that we would start this bursary program, never having run a non-profit organization, never having had any experience in fundraising, but what we did do both very well was be admin assistants. And Anel shortly after that went off to London to speak at a conference, and she mentioned it to Lucy Brazier, and Lucy climbed in boots and all from Executive Secretary's point of view. We ran and we fell and we landed on our face often, and it literally took us a year to get our registration in order, and literally a year later, whether we were ready or not, and we had registered but we had no money, we launched the fund.
And a bursary, for those who are not aware, is a scholarship program.
Yes, that's
for young students who are going into the university to study to be an executive or assistant, administrative assistant.
Yes, we have what we call a higher certificate in office administration that's offered from one of our colleges in South Africa. It is an intense full-time training. They cover 9 subjects in the period. They're expected to do portfolios of evidence. They're expected to do their own research. They're expected to write papers. And at the end of it, they write final exams.
So, Teri, you mentioned the unemployment rate. What is it in South Africa?
Off the record, 32%. Officially documented numbers, 26% unemployment in South Africa. That means 1 in 4 people don't have a job. But I just need to clarify that 1 in 4 is of people that are actively looking for a job. That does not take into account the people who've given up looking for a job.
So walk us through the selection process. Since we met you in 2015, how many people, women and men, have gone through the program?
We've had 10 students all in all, and that includes 3 this year who are busy writing their finals as we sit here. Good luck, girls. And so, yes, it's 10 students thus far that have been through the program. We have an application process. We work through our community centres in what we call informal settlements in South Africa. We send out the application forms to them. They reach out to their communities, people who've contributed to the community centre in one form or another, helping primary school children, the little people, with their homework. And if they think that they have candidates that can do this and are worthy of it, they put them forward.
Can you share a story, because we had the privilege of meeting some of your students. Can you share a story of Loretto and her experience?
Loretto came to us in year 1 as...
Describe what she looked like.
She's the tiniest little person. She's got the biggest dimples, and we have a program in South Africa that used to run for children called Benny Bookworm, which basically means bookworm. And she had these huge glasses on that were bigger than her face, and she was just so enthusiastic and so keen. And when we heard her story, she'd been working in her community centre for a couple of months, and the head of the community centre had put her forward to do this bursary scheme. And when we asked her why she should be considered for the bursary, she said to us, she shares her cousin's family's home with them. They are 7 in a single-roomed structure. We call them squatter camps, and they basically are lean-tos made out of whatever material they can find, cardboard, sheet metal, and they had a bed. And because there's 7 of them, they used to take turns who got to sleep in the bed. And she wanted to better herself, and by bettering herself, provide an extra space in the bed for her family to sleep in a bed more often than once a week.
So they would rotate out. So there was one bed for 7 people.
Yeah.
And each night, one person got to sleep in the bed, and they would rotate it. So you get to sleep in a bed once a week.
Yes.
And she wanted to get out of that situation so that it would be every 6 days.
Your turn comes around faster.
Yes.
And she was literally one of our first shining stars. She actually encouraged us to carry on doing what we were doing, because she went on to get an internship at Discovery Medical Health, which is one of the largest medical providers in South Africa. It was a very short period of time, I want to say less than a year, they promoted her from a receptionist to a secretary, and literally 8 months ago, they promoted her to a fully fledged executive PA to one of the senior managers at Discovery. And I think what's so incredible about Loretto is her first paycheck that she got, she went and found herself a room, but a proper room with bricks and a real roof. And she moved out, not because she didn't want to stay with her family, but because she wanted to give them the opportunity that she'd gone looking for when she applied for the bursary in the first place. And she provides them with funds, so she sends money to them every month to help them make ends meet. And we were looking at the Isipho admin bank account, and there was a deposit, an anonymous deposit of 150 Rand, which is roughly $10. And when we went into the stats of the deposit, we saw that it was from Loretto. And when we phoned her, she said, this bursary has changed my life and my family's life, and it's my chance to give back.
That is so cool. But then, as we see here in the States, education has some really surprising results. You told us a story about what happened then with Loretto. What did she do next?
So she really is an incredible lady, and I one day want to travel with her.
And how old is she? How old is this young woman?
Loretto is now 22 years old.
22.
She came to us when she was 18.
Right, and we met her in South Africa when she was 19.
Exactly.
Yeah, with those big, giant glasses that were bigger than her face. Right?
If you see her today, she's got contact lenses. Her hair is beautifully braided. She wears the most magnificent suits, and she looks like a different person. She behaves like a different person. Sorry, Bonnie, your question was?
What did she do when that story you told us?
So she ends up working at Discovery, which is this, as I said, the largest medical provider in South Africa, medical insurance provider. She gets sent downstairs as a junior to go and collect a guest and bring him up to a meeting, which she does, and she greets him, and Dr. whoever, I can't remember what his name was, and she rides up in the elevator with him. When she gets upstairs, they say, oh, we've got nobody to take the minutes. Will you come into the meeting and take the minutes, please? Which she does. Quick 15-minute meeting, she made the notes, and Dr. whoever left. And it was several months later, she had to go and fetch a guest from reception, and it was Dr. whoever. So she meets him in the foyer, and she says, hi, doctor, and addresses him by name. And he says to her, how do you know who I am? So she says to him, because when I started here as an intern, I had to come and fetch you, and I took you upstairs to the meeting. And he said, oh, really? Tell me your story. So she then went on to tell him how she'd come out of this Orange Farm squatter camp, how she'd done the Isipho admin bursary program, how she'd got this job at Discovery, and how she was working her way up in the ranks. And he looked at her and he said to her, if there's ever anything I can do to help you, please tell me. And without even stopping for a second, she turned to him and she said to him, I need you to come and talk to the boys in our informal settlement, because they think going to a life of crime and gang-related work is the only way to change their lives. And he said to her, set it up, I'll be there. And within 2 months, he arrived at the informal settlement. They had all the boys there. It is a very patriarchal society. She had gathered all the boys with the help of the community and the elders. The girls and the women left the room, and he engaged with these boys, and he was scheduled to talk to them for 2 hours. And they were so enchanted that somebody cared, and that somebody had advice to give them, and that somebody reached out to them, that he ended up not leaving after 2 hours. And Loretta was sitting outside, wondering if she should go in and check if he was okay, if the doctor was doing okay. And when he walked out, because now he was followed by all the boys, and all he did was he turned and he looked at her and he went, and he left. So she immediately thought about her community and how she could help the boys in the community.
And it worked. That's so cool.
We will be sure to include photos on the recording, so when you watch this back, you'll be able to see the settlements where they all live, kind of see what that looks like.
And Lorato.
Lorato,
But I remember when we met them all in South Africa, there were tears, you know, the knowledge that they were going to be able to get this scholarship, that, you know, that it made such a difference, right?
I think the beauty of it for us is that, yes, we have the selection process, and we have 300 applicants, and we can only take 3 because it's all funds dependent. But we seem to have hit the luck. With all 10 people that we've had, they've been the most incredibly warm, willing, able, generous people. Their souls are so good, and people say to me, you've got 2 daughters. I said, well, I've got 10 students. That makes 12 daughters. Mm-hmm. And I think that's more than enough for any one mother. But they do. They creep into your heart, and they give back in ways that we can't even imagine.
Yeah.
They feed my soul as much as we're providing them with an opportunity.
So tell us about Michelle Simpson of New Zealand, because I was with you in Johannesburg, and I got to meet Michelle Simpson. Tell us about her.
And witness a lot of the ugly
Yes.
crying.
Yeah. It was beautiful crying. Yeah.
Michelle is an executive PA in New Zealand, and last year for her 50th birthday, she'd heard about Isipho just prior to her birthday celebrations coming up. And she went to her family and friends, and she said to them, I don't want gifts. I don't want presents, I don't want massages. I want to sponsor a student in South Africa on the Isipho admin bursary scheme. Please, will you give me money? And they did, and she raised sufficient funds to pay one student's tuition for the full year.
How much was that?
It's about $1,200 US. Right?
Yeah, it was about $1,200 US, obviously with inflation and the exchange rates, but yes, it's around $1,200. And then she decided that that wasn't good enough. So she then started living on a shoestring herself and saving every penny that she could, because her dream was to travel to South Africa to come and meet her student. And in September this year, we welcomed Michelle to South Africa, introduced her to Valencia, who's her student, and it was the most incredible, like I said, lots of really ugly faces crying. It was just heaven. Michelle's mum passed away earlier this year, but she'd known for a full year that she was sponsoring, that her daughter was sponsoring the student. She'd knitted little jerseys and berets and fluffy toys and bought storybooks and traditional storybooks from New Zealand. And she presented them to Valencia, who has a little girl who's 3 years old. And she said to Valencia, I feel like I've got a grandchild. She honestly feels, she'd met her. That was the first day that she met her. So her mum, before she passed, had knitted and crocheted all the stuff, and Michelle came over to South Africa bearing a bigger gift than the financial contribution. She basically gave her heart to our student.
And they keep in touch, and they're on Facebook and social media.
Permanently. Yeah. Permanently. I get copied on correspondence, and then Valencia messages me privately to say, Teri, Michelle said. And it really is. It's just a beautiful relationship that's developed out of the wanting to give.
And that's even inspired, I know, a PA network in UK is raising funds to sponsor a student through Isipho. And I thought, what a great idea that you can personally sponsor someone in South Africa to get a scholarship to learn and be in this profession, but also your EA network can raise funds to sponsor a student.
Absolutely, and I think it's important to note, and again, we go back to the exchange rate. Debbie made the point yesterday and said, for a $5 cup of coffee, you enjoy your coffee. I'm not taking that away from you, and you probably feel better for it for the rest of the day. But that $5 cup of coffee provides one of our students with data for 2 weeks. Now, they get free data while they're at college, but when they go home, they don't have electricity, they don't have running water, they don't have any of those things. And they need to do assignments, and they need to work after hours. So they pick up the phone permanently. Teri, I need 100 rands data, and then I send them data. So
is that internet? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, sorry, the internet is the data costs that we have. So the small amounts, it's the little amounts that all add up to huge contributions to these ladies. 2 cups of coffee is getting close to groceries for 2 weeks, and things like that. People must understand it's not about the big numbers. It's not about it's transportation, it's data, it's food, it's those kind of things that are important to us.
What I think is so striking about Isipho, it started making me think about the global picture. Because, Michelle Obama here in the United States has begun the Global Girls Initiative. So there seems to be a lot of attention being paid right now to why it makes sense to focus on young girls. And not only in Africa, but in all countries, in the United States, in every country, which makes a whole lot of sense to me. And we're in a profession that is so interested in giving back. So that's one of the main reasons we wanted to speak with you about this. But, Teri, you have an interesting perspective on why it's important to focus on young girls.
Well, I think, first of all, we don't only focus on girls for the bursary. We just happen to only have had girl successful candidates up till now. But it's by no means limited to that. But if you have a look at the general trend is that a woman's position, as we know in the past, has been at home, providing for the kids, doing the laundry, making sure dinner's on the table, and those kind of things. Now, that exists today in large measure in a lot of countries in the world, and not least of which Africa. So I'm not going to focus on the other countries because it does there, but I live in Africa, and that's where my heart is. If you take a girl child and you educate her, her first natural instinct is to provide for her family. So by educating a girl child and giving her the ability to earn an income, I can guarantee you that if a woman earns X amount of money, she's going to make that go a lot further than if a man earns X amount of money, specifically when you have your children and your families to care for. They also, historically, women rise and they lift others. So when a mother is successful, she wants to see her children succeed. Even when a mother's not successful, she wants to see her children succeed. So you're kind of, empowering the woman, specifically where we are in these more patriarchal societies, to improve their lot. And the knock-on effect is just immense.
And I would be here to say that it's not just third world countries. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So we do actually have time for the story about Iris. I'd love for you to share that.
Not so, fun.
Okay, it's very hard for me to relate any of these stories without tears because these children are really near and dear to my heart, and they're not all children. When I say children, I talk about them being younger than I am. Iris woke up one morning. She was 18 years old. She just graduated from school, which we call matric. She had a brother and a sister who were both still in what we call high school, which is your last level of schooling. And she had a brother and a sister in primary school, which was your entry-level schooling. And she woke up one morning, and her parents were gone. They'd packed up in the middle of the night, they'd taken their belongings, and they left. And literally, in the space of the 2 minutes that it took her to wake up, she became what is very common, unfortunately, in South Africa, is the head of a child-headed household. At 18 years old, she had 4 siblings. She had no employment, she had no income. What they did have was a house, so there was a small mercy there. She literally got dressed, walked to the local community center, and said to them, "You have to help me. I've got 4 brothers and sisters at home, and my parents are gone." They tried in vain, they couldn't track them down, and she said to them, "Can I work in the community center? Can you help me to raise my siblings?" And they said to her, "We haven't got money, we can't pay you a salary, but if you help us with the office admin, filing, answering the telephone, we will put together food parcels for you." So they collected food parcels from the community, the haves and the have-nots, and they put together food parcels for her. So for the balance of that year, they provided her with food parcels, which enabled her to feed her family, her brothers and sisters. Her brother passed school, graduated, matric. Her older sister graduated, matric. The community center helped her to apply for government grants for the 2 little ones so that their schooling could be paid for. And she fell pregnant and had her own little boy a year later. So she now had 3 littlies at home. And she just rose above it. She works. She has a work ethic that I very seldom see in anybody. She is so committed to her family and to raising them and to making sure that they don't end up in this downward spiral of poverty. She qualified. We have huge unemployment, as we said at the beginning of this, but she's determined to work. So she went and got a job in one of our supermarket chains, one of our grocery stores, and she works behind the deli counter, serving potato salad and cold meats and things like that. But they identified in her, she got the job, by the way, because she had the certificate. So she was more qualified than anybody else, might not have been in deli service, but she was more qualified. And within a couple of months of her being there, she got given the Star Employees Award. They've identified her for further training so that as and when opportunities come, they can start grooming her into the role. But she's not working as an admin assistant. So I got a message from her not too long ago, and she said, "Can I please find her an office?" She has 2 days off a week, and she'll go and work in that office for free, just to make sure that she doesn't lose any of the skills she learned during her college tuition.
So when you think we have problems, we got nothing.
What does Isipho stand for? How did you come up with the name?
Isipho means the gift. So what we did was we called it Isipho Admin, which is the gift of admin, the gift of administration, because we are wholly and solely focused on our own profession and giving back to our profession.
And by the way, what did you and Anel find out when you Googled around about bursaries?
So there's bursaries and scholarships for lots of things, and we had a look, and there is no other that we could find. So if somebody finds it, please tell me. There's no other bursary scholarship program specifically for our profession in the world.
That's why we have to help, right? We got to help this.
So,
good for you.
Do you want to mention who else is on your team?
we have the most incredible team of mentors because we don't believe in just providing the money for college. We have a very holistic approach to what we're doing. So we have Susanne Engelbrecht, who's one of the senior PAs at Discovery, And we've appointed her as our head mentor. You have never seen a more able mother hen in your life. She tracks their college results. She knows when their assignments are due. She knows when they're writing tests. She sends them happy birthday messages. She checks up on them on a daily basis. So Susan heads up our mentorship team. Each student that we've appointed gets given a mentor. So that is your personal mentor for the duration of your studies. They pick up the phone when they've got assignments to do, if they've got tasks they don't understand, if they're running out of data, whatever it is, they have their mentors, and the mentors keep touch with them at least once a week, sometimes more often. Cathy Harris, who's actually also on the speaking team for Lucy, she is a grandmother of 5 littlies who live in her house with her, with the mother of the children and the father of the children. And she just has this unbelievable capacity for love.
Yeah.
She's an incredible executive PA as well, also at Discovery, but she has this capacity. There's just no limit to the amount of love that Cathy gives. So she's one of our mentors, a lady by the name of Leanne Meyer. She used to be the executive secretary to the Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank of South Africa. I always tell her we approached her because she had the keys to the coffers, because the Reserve Bank looks after our money. But Leanne is ultimately in control. She is an incredibly calm, stable individual with years of knowledge. So she's one of our mentors. And then Anel jokes always and says she's the daddy. You know, when your kids want money, they go to daddy. So when Anel was still in South Africa, they'd go to daddy because they needed money for groceries or data or whatever it was. I've assumed the role as daddy now because Anel moved to Dubai. So yeah, we have this incredible support structure individually for the students.
And how can our listeners and viewers get involved? What is it that we can do? We've heard the story about Michelle, her personally donating and sponsoring a student, and then also EA Networks. What are your financial needs? You have a wish list on your website. Tell us how we can all help.
Yes, we do. We have a wish list on our website, and don't be surprised when you look at it. It has things as simple as highlighters, highlight pens, and notebooks, and because our students literally have nothing. When I say to you they come to us with the clothes on their back, most of them, in fact, the first 3 interviews that we did came with we call it a checkers. You know, your plastic shopping bag that you get at the they came with those. They don't own a purse. They don't own. So when we ask you for highlighters, pens, notebooks, computer bags, those kind of things, those are all on our wish list on our website. Yes, we need the funds, otherwise we can't pay the tuition fees and we can't buy the books. But our wish list on our website really goes down to all the little things that we need. And like I said earlier, it doesn't matter how big the donation is, we can make $5 go a long way, and we've learned to do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, please have a look at our website. It's www.isiphoadmin.org.za. Yes,
You know what I was going to say, and if there's a technology company out there that wants to donate funds to sponsor the laptops and the software.
Yes.
So they don't have to be physical things. They can earmark funding
for a specific item.
For a specific purpose.
I'm going to just quickly tell you the story. So in the first year, Vicky gets contacts at Aeneas Live. Turns out that this company, the husband and wife team, ended up donating the laptops that we use for our students still to this day. We take them back at the beginning of the year, we reformat them, and they go back out to our students again. They have a limited lifespan. So if somebody wants to earmark a donation for a specific cause, we will certainly listen.
Great. Well, Teri, your story is always so moving.
Thank you.
It is our tradition at the Be the Ultimate Assistant podcast that we ask our guest your favorite quote, your philosophy of life. What is it for you, Teri?
I'm going to have to go back to my favorite saying, which has actually become our tagline for Isipho, and that is, make a difference, one life at a time.
I love that.
And you are doing that. You and Anel and the team are doing that. We're so proud of you, and we're so proud to support your effort.
And I'm eternally grateful for the support I get from the admin community. It is phenomenal.
Yeah.
In fact, it's overwhelming. So thank you all.
Great. Well, this concludes today's episode. Please send us your feedback, topic ideas, questions, whatever you want to the betheultimateassistant.com website and go to the podcast page. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to our awesome guest, Teri Wells, for being with us today.
Thank you.
And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks, Bonnie.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Teri.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you all for being here.